he had an entrepreneurial, does have sort of an entrepreneurial streak, and he has become sort of almost the spoke of a hub of a number of different medicine teachers and trainees and whatnot. Over the years, he's been a main contact for us, and still is. And he's introduced me to other medicines and other medicine people, and has played a central role over the last 20 years. We're still good friends. I see him every year or two in Belize or Canada or Peru or Venezuela or somewhere where there's a gathering, and he calls up and says, "Well, we're going to have a gathering. You want to come?"
And so through him, you were able to experience. You got connected to like a larger community.
Yeah, there was one of the really strong teachers that I've worked with, a man named Bolivar from the Amazonian part of Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
His medicine is called Yopo.
Okay.
Yopo is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's made with, it's a DMT psychoactive molecule primarily. And as is ayahuasca, but they're different in that the ayahuasca is made with the Banisteriopsis and other plants so that you can take it orally. What they do, because the DMT, which is powerful psychoactive, is inactivated by enzymes in the stomach, and the medicine men in the Amazon had learned, they say the plants tell them, of course, and that if they made a tea, including the Banisteriopsis vine and other things, that you would get the DMT, but it also had very strong enzymes in the tea that came from the Banisteriopsis primarily that inactivate monoamine oxidase, which is the inactivating substance in the stomach. And so they inactivate that particular enzyme, and then you can absorb the DMT through the stomach mucosa, and you can take it orally.
Okay.
Bolivar's medicine was from the seeds of a tree that grew in the Amazon, and they take it and they grind it up and they make it into a paste with a few other substances, the ash of certain trees and other things, and they lay it out on flat rocks, and it bakes in the sun into cakes, and then they crumble these up into little pieces, and then when you're ready to use it, they have almost like a little mortar and pestle that they grind it up into a very fine powder, and then they have snorters made out of the long bones of bird legs, and you snort it, and it's absorbed through the membranes of the sinus and nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's instantaneous. It's like shooting at ID because it goes straight into the brain. And that way you bypass the stomach acids, and they're not inactivated.
I see. Okay. And so what's that experience like? What's Yopo like?
Yopo is really a powerful experience. It's as if you took one of the other entheogen experiences. If you look at it as a curve, those who take orally, of course, last from 6 or 8 hours for the ayahuasca to, as we know, 12 or 24 hours for ibogaine. But if you take the area under that curve and you put it into a 2-hour span, and it's like a huge spike at the beginning and then a slow degradation, and the Yopo DMT experience is pretty much within 2.5 hours it's done. But it's very intense. And it's when you snort it, it's like your first experience is, oh my God, I've just been kicked in the face by a mule. It really burns. But then almost immediately you begin to have a very strong visual with a light show with all sorts of things happening, and very quickly your consciousness just goes cosmic, and and then gradually you work through that. Sometimes you'd purge after, even after doing that, although it doesn't go to the stomach. Sometimes you purge with the Yopo as well.
So what was
it's
your...
It's a very intense, but much briefer experience.
What was your experience like? What happened?
Well, it was, I've done it a number of times, and one time was when Edmund, my friend I talked about earlier, here in Florida, had a little 26 acres. One of my daughters was into horses. We had a couple of horses. It wasn't a farm, but we had I have very little recollection of them. Many people talk about they watched the movie and this and that. And that. I don't. I have one really, really very strong, clear recollection from the whole night. I was lying in the bed in the dark, in the quiet, and I became aware of a presence at the foot of the bed. And when I sort of tried to look down toward the foot of the bed, I had this vision of this little man standing there, dark-skinned, short, looked more like a stump than a man. And he was holding a staff, bearded and vines and things draped over. He looked at me, and he said, "What do you want of me?" And I stumbled around, and I couldn't think of what to say, and blah, 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 running through my head, what's going on here, and trying to sort of make, and finally I just sort of blurted out, well, I wanted to meet you, experience you. My intention was to do some work with you. And he says, and that was it. My interview was over. But that's my clearest recollection of the night.
I've heard of other experiences where people see a vision of the Iboga tree, but it's huge and overpowering. Whereas you saw a little stump of a guy.
Yeah, he was this little guy. He looked like a stump almost. It was, but it was so clear. My interview, I don't know what I didn't do well or whatever, but he heard what I had to say. All he had to say was,
Wow. Okay.
The rest of that 40-something hours was just amazing. It was wonderful.
That's great. So how would you compare it with Peyote and Yopo and anything else that you've had an experience with?
Well, we posed that question to the leading expert that I've run across, which is